I thought family meant safety, that behind these walls the world's cruelty couldn't reach me, but I was wrong. It started with a single comment at the dinner table, small enough to ignore, sharp enough to cut. By the time I realized where it was leading, the damage was already done, and it came from someone I loved. I grew up believing our home was different, a place where love was stronger than the world's hate. My parents had always told me that no matter what happened outside, here I'd be protected. That night started like any other. The smell of my mother's cooking filled the house, the faint hum of the TV playing in the background. My younger sister sat at the table, scrolling through her phone, while my father read the newspaper. We'd just finished dinner when the conversation shifted. It began with a distant news story on the television, a report about a young man assaulted. Because of his race, I remember my chest tightening as I listened, expecting sympathy, outrage, something human. Instead, I heard a laugh, not loud but cold, and then a comment. Well, maybe he brought it on himself? I froze, unsure if I'd heard right. My eyes met my sister's. She looked away. I tried to brush it off, to tell myself it wasn't meant the way it sounded. But then the words kept coming, sharper, heavier, dripping with the kind of bias I'd only heard from strangers. And every word came from the mouth of someone who had raised me. That's when I realized maybe home wasn't the safe place I thought it was. I wanted to speak, to challenge what I'd just heard, but the words stuck in my throat. My father folded his newspaper with a sharp snap, as if sealing his opinion in the air. My mother stayed silent, her hands busy clearing the table, too busy to meet my eyes. The conversation shifted again, but not away from the topic. Every new remark was a brick being laid, building a wall between us. They spoke about those people, as if I wasn't sitting right there, as if my skin wasn't a shade they'd just mocked. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe they were just repeating something they'd heard. Maybe they didn't understand how cruel it sounded. But then my sister joined in, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "You're too sensitive," she said, her eyes still fixed on her phone. "It's just a joke." A joke? That word made my stomach twist. I'd heard it before, on the playground, in the locker room, from strangers on the street, always as a shield for something that was never funny. But hearing it here, in this house, from people I loved, cut deeper than any insult from outside ever could. I finally spoke. My voice shook, but I forced it out. "Do you even hear yourselves?" The room went quiet for a moment, but not in the way I hoped. My father's eyes narrowed. "We're just talking," he said. "Don't make this into something it's not." Something it's not? My chest burned. I wanted to scream, to make them see how their words felt like betrayal. But every time I tried, they pushed back harder, dismissing my feelings, telling me I was imagining things. Then came the moment that changed everything. My father leaned back, crossed his arms, and said, "If you don't like how we talk in this house, maybe you shouldn't be here." The air in the room felt heavier, pressing against my ribs. My own home, the place I thought was my refuge, had just turned into somewhere I was no longer welcome. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. For a split second, I thought about walking out and never coming back. But something inside me knew this wasn't over. If they thought their words could silence me, they were wrong. I should have walked away. That would have been easier. But something in me refused to let their words stand. My voice rose without me even realizing it. Every hurt I'd swallowed for years, suddenly spilling out. I reminded them of the lessons they'd taught me as a child. Kindness, fairness, standing up for what's right. And then I asked the question that had been burning in my chest all night. If someone said these things about me, would you still call it a joke? For a moment, I thought I saw something shift in my mother's face. Guilt, maybe. But my father's expression hardened even more. He slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing through the room. "Don't twist my words," he barked. "You're looking for a fight, and you'll find it if you keep going." The tension in the air was suffocating. My sister put down her phone at last, but only to glare at me. "You always have to make everything about race," she said. "It's exhausting." Those words hit harder than I expected. Because for me, it was always about race, not by choice, but because the world made it that way. And now my own family was doing the same. I stood there, trembling, feeling the weight of years pressing down. All the times I'd brushed off small comments. All the moments I'd let things slide to keep the peace. This was the breaking point. I can't believe I'm hearing this in my own home, I said, my voice breaking. I thought you were different. I thought you were better. No one replied. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock, marking each second of the silence that now felt permanent. In that moment, I realized something that hurt more than anything they'd said. Home wasn't where you live. Home is where you're seen. And tonight I was invisible. I left the table that night without another word. My room felt colder than it had in years, the familiar walls now strangers. I could hear the faint clinking of dishes in the kitchen, the muffled voices of my family continuing as if nothing had happened. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The betrayal wasn't in just what they'd said. It was in the way they refused to see me, the way they dismissed my pain, as if acknowledging it would cost them something they weren't willing to give. In the days that followed, I kept my distance. I spoke less, smiled less, and slowly learned to stop expecting them to understand. I realized I couldn't control their words or beliefs, but I could control how much power they had over me. So I started writing down my thoughts, turning the pain into something tangible. I shared pieces of my story online, anonymously at first. To my surprise, strangers responded with understanding, with their own stories of being hurt by the people closest to them. And slowly I realized I wasn't alone. The distance between me and my family never fully closed. We still speak, but something changed forever that night. I no longer see home as four walls or the people within them. Home, I've learned, is where your identity isn't questioned, where love doesn't come with conditions. There's a truth I wish my family understood. Racism isn't always loud, and it isn't always from strangers. Sometimes it sits at your dinner table, and maybe the hardest question we can ever ask ourselves is this: when it's your own family, will you have the courage to confront it? Or will you stay silent?